Hey there and welcome back to the channel. So here we are wrapping up 2019, steamrolling our way into 2020. We've got a lot of great things that are happening both for our family and for the YouTube channel. Some of those I'll share with you after the holidays are over and beginning into next year. But one thing that I can share with you now is my wife and I just closed on a piece of property and a new home. And so we're really excited about that. It's going to open up a lot of different avenues for us, both for our family and some things that we can do with it for the YouTube channel. As is, I'm sitting in right now, an empty shell of a building, and it's just kind of a raw building right now, but I'm going to convert it into an office and our YouTube studio. So we'll be able to film some of these talking head videos in here, and y'all will be able to follow along as we finish out the place, maybe even offer up some suggestions and ideas on what we can do with it. And so I'll be looking forward to sharing that with y'all. The other thing, and kind of along those lines, is I just hit 5,000 subscribers last week. And so that's a nice little milestone for a small YouTube channel like this one. Pretty excited about that. So if you are a subscriber, I know a lot of you guys have come over here from TexasBowhunter.com and followed me over here and have been a longtime follower of what we're doing with our YouTube videos. Appreciate you guys. If you're new to the channel, be sure to hit the subscribe button below. We'd like to continue that momentum. One of the things that I'm going to do, if you'll stay tuned towards the end of this video, is we're going to do a little giveaway and kind of celebration of that 5,000 subscriber milestone. So be sure to watch to the end of the video. All right, so as far as this video goes, I'm going to do a little bit of a spin-off of a video that I did last November, actually November of 2018, in which we talked about different styles of cameras that you might use for self-filming your hunts, and kind of gear it more towards somebody that's just getting into filming their hunts, specifically for the internet and particularly for YouTube. In fact, I want to do an entire series that's kind of dedicated towards the YouTube hunting community and kind of share ideas back and forth on ideas, tricks, tips, thoughts that you have on how to build your channel, how to film your hunts, how to successfully build a YouTube channel. So we'll be kind of doing that weekly as we go, and I'll be asking for your opinion on some of that stuff, and maybe even for some of your ideas and thoughts as well. So after that last video, I had a lot of subscribers that reached out to me either in the comments section or over on TexasBowhunter.com on the discussion that we had over there, or some even by text, and have asked me specifically for recommendations on which camcorder they can use to get started. And while I won't claim to have done the research to compare all the different models of cameras from Sony to JVC, Canon, Panasonic, all of those, what I will do is I want to talk about the specific camera that I mentioned in that video. And we talked about the Panasonic VX870 that I purchased for my wife. If you haven't watched that previous video, I'm going to encourage you to pause this one right now. I'll post a link to it right here. Watch that one because it's we're going to kind of take off on some of the concepts, the features that we talked about in that video, and kind of delve into them a little bit deeper with regard to this specific camera. All right, so as far as this camera goes, again, I've had a lot of people that have reached out to me and asked me about this camera. Through that, we're going to kind of talk about maybe some newer models. I do still think that the 870 is still in production, and then there's also a 770 that's still in production. We'll kind of talk about those. Mostly interchangeable, but I'll also mention the differences where I come across them. This is the VX870. It's a 4K camera. I bought it for my wife for about $600 or $700 last year. I think they still have the similar model cameras for under $600 now. You can get that VX770, which is the 1080 version of that, for a couple $100 cheaper. And I might encourage you to kind of take a look at that. So one of the first things that we talked about in that other video is make sure that you have a camera that shoots in 1080 HD. And we also said, remember, don't get so caught up in 4K. 4K is definitely a nice to have option, but there are reasons why you might actually prefer to shoot 1080 over 4K. And in fact, in my next video, I'm going to give you reasons why I think 1080 may actually be more suitable, and especially for YouTube channel, than shooting in 4K. So we'll talk a little bit more about that in detail. But let's make sure that you at least have 1080 option. The VX870, the VX980, and the 991 all shoot 4K. The VX770 is the 1080 version, so it doesn't shoot in 4K, but it does shoot 1080, and I think it may be a great option for somebody looking to save a little bit of money on that. All right, so the other thing that we talked about in that video is low light performance. And as you know, hunting videos, typically most of your activity in hunting situations is going to occur in the early morning hours before the sun comes up, or in the late evening hours, perhaps after the sun goes down. So you want to make sure that you have a camera that performs reasonably well in low light. And in that other video, we talked about one of the considerations to look for is the sensor size of the sensor in the video camera. So generally speaking, and this is not an absolute, but generally speaking, the larger the sensor size, the better it's going to perform in low light. Now, the VX870 and camcorders in this class range are either going to have a 1/3 inch or 1/2 inch sensor, somewhere within that range. The VX870 has a 1/2.3 inch sensor, so it's just slightly smaller than a 1/2 inch. Whereas some of the lower end consumer camcorders that you're going to see for the $200 or $300 price range may have a 1/3 inch sensor, so it's going to be considerably smaller. Your cell phone cameras, your action cameras, most of those are going to have a 1/3 inch sensor. Now, while the difference between a 1/2 inch and a 1/3 inch doesn't sound like a whole bunch, it's going to provide a significant difference in, generally speaking, in the quality of the video that you're going to get, and especially in the low light performance. You're going to avoid some of that pixelization and the grain and the noise that you're going to get, especially in some of the shadow areas. All right, so the other thing that we talked about is zoom range. Obviously, with hunting situation, you want a camera that's going to have a capable zoom. This VX870 actually has a 25x zoom. The newer models, I think, have a 20x. I'm not sure which ones have 20 and 25x. But the key point is to make sure that you're looking at optical zoom and don't get wrapped up in the digital zoom that a lot of the manufacturers will promote and talk about. The more you get into that digital zoom, the worse your image quality is going to degrade. So most of the time, I try to stay within that optical range. 20x optical is more than suitable for most bow hunting situations, and really, in fact, for most gun hunting situations, unless you're reaching out to a couple of 100 yards or even farther, and then you might be looking at a different option as far as zoom ranges for your camera. All right, so the other thing, feature that we talked about is making sure that your camera has some sort of a flip out LCD screen fully articulating. The Panasonic models all offer an articulating screen. That's important because, as you know, if you're in a ground blind situation, you may have the camera in a tripod. It may be in front of you. It may actually be beside you. If you're in a tree stand, you may have it kind of low in your lap, and so you want to be able to articulate that screen so that you can see what's in front of you. See what's that you're, capture your focus. Make sure that you've got it properly framed. Make sure that your exposure is correct. Also, it flips forward. So if you're in your hunting channel, maybe you want to do some vlogs, you want to be able to frame yourself in the picture. So having an articulating screen is very important. On all the Panasonic cameras we're talking about, we've got a 3-inch diagonal screen, and that's more than sufficient in most cases. I find that more than sufficient. Now, one difference that the 991 has over the other options is it also has the electronic eyepiece viewfinder. So if your style of shooting is that you're going to be following somebody and you want to have that extra stability and be able to look through an eyepiece viewfinder, then that may be an important consideration for you. For me, I don't really miss it on my camcorders. It's something that I like to have for photography, for still photography, but I don't really need it on my camcorders. But again, that's going to be a personal type item for you. All right, so speaking of the screen, this is a touch screen that has your menu options on here. It's real easy to follow menu options. This camera does a very quality job in all the automatic settings, but there may be times when you want to dial in your exposure. You may want to dial in your shutter speed for low light performance and that kind of thing, increase your gain. So there are manual options available for your gain, for your shutter speed, for your aperture, for all of those different things. You can kind of get a little bit cumbersome following the menus, but I think after you use it a time or two, it actually kind of becomes second nature for you, so I don't think it'll be any problem. So let's talk about frame rates. This camera is the VX870, shoots in 4K at 30 frames per second. I think the newer models also shoot 4K at 24 frames per second. All of them shoot 1080 at, I think, 30, 60, and 120 frames. So if you want that super buttery smooth slow motion, then 120 frames per second is a nice option to have. The 60 frames, I actually like 60 frames per second for most of my B-roll and for most of my slow-mo footage. I think this one also offers, and I know the 981 and the 991 also offer slow-mo setting at 240 frames per second, and I believe that's without audio. And I think the 770 also shoots 1080 at 60, 120, and maybe has a digitized 240 frames per second. So be sure to check the feature set on that, but I'm pretty sure that that's the way it is. So one of the things I mentioned in that previous video is to make sure that you have a camera that has external audio inputs. I think it's very important. One thing that distinguishes, in my opinion, a really good video on YouTube from maybe one that's average or even subpar is the quality of the audio. And I think a lot of people overlook that. So having good quality audio and external audio inputs is important. I recently had a subscriber that reached out to me by text and was asking me about the motor noise and the autofocus noise that he was picking up from his camcorder, and he was picking it up on his footage. So as he was filming an animal, as that autofocus changed and the motor whirred, he was picking that up and he didn't like it on his footage. And so we talked about external mic options, but the camcorder that he was using didn't actually have an external mic input. So he and I talked about this camera and the newer models, and he actually ended up purchasing one of these cameras as well. So I'll allow him to give his feedback on that if he so chooses, but otherwise I won't mention him by name, although he's got a great YouTube channel. In conjunction with the audio input, make sure you have some sort of a cold shoe adapter, either integrated within the camera or with the Panasonics. It's actually an adapter that plugs into the back of it, so you can just actually, it's got a release here, pops right in and out. There's your cold shoe adapter. You can use it for obviously your external mic, also for external lighting. Lighting is another important consideration. Along those lines, this does offer a little small video light that's up front that you can turn off. You can turn it on to automatic, but it does have a nice little light on it that is okay in a pinch. Again, I would recommend that you get some sort of an external lighting option, and I'll actually create a separate video on different options that I use for that as well. All right, so a couple of other features that I'll go over with regard to the camera is it's got a charger, the battery charger, and that's important because it's a USB charger. You can use normal AC power in it, but it also has a USB on one end so that you could plug it into an external battery pack. And I think that's a very important feature to look for in a camera. Now, speaking of batteries, it comes with a battery that lasts probably about an hour to 2 hours. One thing I would highly recommend is when you purchase your camera, go ahead and purchase a extended life battery. A lot of the knockoff brands I think are suitable. This is a extended life battery. I think it provides about twice the milliamp hours of the battery that comes with it. And so I would recommend that you actually pick up a couple of these and it will actually extend your recording capabilities. So one feature that I really like about this is that when the camera's on and the viewfinder is open, you know, you can do all your recording functions, but you can close the viewfinder, and rather than turning the camera all the way off, it puts it into a sleep mode, which preserves the battery life. And then if an animal comes back in or you're ready to start recording again, just open the monitor and it relatively quietly turns back on. All right, so all in all, the Panasonic cameras, the VX870, the 980, the 981, or even the 770 1080 version are great little cameras. They're very easy to use, especially in the automatic mode. They do have the manual capabilities if you want to go in that route. I'm not telling you to go out and buy this camera. I'm not saying it's better than any of the Sonys or the Canons or the JVCs or any other brand manufacturer, but hopefully this video will give you a starting point in your own research and give you something to kind of compare it to. So if you, in your comparison, you come across and you say, hey, I think this Sony camera is a lot better than the Panasonic, let me know in the comments section below why you think so, and we can have either a little discussion about it, or maybe at some point we'll do another video and do a comparison of those. But I think this will be a great little starting point for somebody that's looking to get started filming their hunts, somebody that's looking to kind of start their own YouTube channel and join our little hunting community here on YouTube. All right, so if that's you, let me know in the comments section below if you have a YouTube channel. I'd love to kind of take a look at it. Once again, this is kind of the first or second in a series of videos that I'm going to do. It's going to be a weekly series. I'll follow this up. If you have any ideas on what you'd like to see in those videos, don't hesitate to leave a comment in the comment section below. Just let me know kind of some things that you would like me to cover, and I'll give consideration to that. Getting back to our little celebration of 5,000. You may have noticed this nice little patch cap, TexasMotor.com patch cap that I'm wearing. We've got a couple more that are in the back here. We're going to be giving one of those away. And so it's easy to qualify. All you have to do is be a subscriber, which I'm assuming most of you already are. If you're not, it's not too late. Go ahead and hit the subscribe button down below. And then all you have to do is just leave a comment on this video. So next week, let's give it 1 week. Today's Thursday. Next Thursday, which is the 27th, I guess, 2 days after Christmas, I'll do a separate video and we'll announce the winner of that giveaway. That said, I will see you on the video next week when we announce our winner. In the meantime, y'all have a great, happy, Merry Christmas, and I'll look forward to seeing y'all soon.